I am not excited to see Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya, and I know that may shock a lot of you, but it's not exactly what you think. The reason why I'm not excited for this matchup, or I guess I am excited for this matchup, but the reason why I don't want to see it is because of the nature of the build-up to this fight. Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis have been in an ongoing feud, some online, some in person, and it has escalated into a situation where now it is Israel Adesanya acting like a child and Dricus doing his best to handle the situation like a gentleman. This whole issue started when Dricus made some comments all the way back at UFC 285 in the lead up to his fight with Derek Brunson, where he brutally finished Derek Brunson at the end of the second round. I thought the round ended. I didn't even realize that Derek Brunson's team had thrown in the towel, but he brutally finishes Derek Brunson. And in the build-up to that fight, he was asked about bringing the belt back to Africa. So in this video, we're going to take a look at some clips, and these clips are going to involve some comments made by Israel Adesanya, some comments made by Dricus du Plessis, and I'm also going to give my thoughts on the clips and give my thoughts on this whole build-up to the fight and why I don't want to see this fight. So let's take a look at the first clip. This first clip is Dricus du Plessis starting the whole thing in the build-up to UFC 285. I don't agree with his comments entirely, but let's take a look.
Does it bum you out there's not as much gold potentially going back the next time they go? Or do you see this as an opportunity? Now you do get to be the guy if and when they show up to Africa.
Well, I mean, did those belts ever go to Africa? As far as I know, it came to America and New Zealand. I'm going to take a belt to Africa. I'm the African fighter in the UFC. Myself and Cameron, we breathe the African air. We wake up in Africa every day. We train in Africa. We're African born. We're African raised. We still reside in Africa. We train out of Africa. That's an African champion, and that's who I'll be.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Dricus du Plessis in the build-up to his fight with Derek Brunson at UFC 285, headlined by John Jones and Cyril Gane, goes off and says, he alludes to the fact that Israel Adesanya is not, he's not a true African because Israel Adesanya doesn't live in Africa. He speaks about how, as far as I'm concerned, the belt never went to Africa. The belt went to New Zealand, and that's where Israel Adesanya lives. And he speaks about how he was born in Africa, raised in Africa, currently still lives in Africa, trains out of Africa, and will continue to live in Africa. And he's speaking about how he wants to bring the belt back to Africa, and he's going to be the guy to do that. He's going to be the African fighter in the UFC, in his own words. And these comments sparked a huge racial debate in the MMA community. I am so grateful that I did not participate in this because it was just embarrassing. It was so embarrassing. And although here are my thoughts on the clips. Here are my thoughts on the comments made by Dricus du Plessis. I don't think that Dricus had ill will or ill intention in making these comments. I don't think that he, like Colby Covington, paid some dude on the street, said, hey, make me some lines, showed him some videos of Israel Adesanya and said, hey, write me down some lines that are really going to piss Adesanya off and sell the fight. I don't think he pulled a Colby Covington here. I don't think that his intention was to, piss off Adesanya. But I think that he was just, he wanted to be recognized as the African champion when he gets the belt, as, he believes he will. And he may very well become a champion, and he may very well be the man to bring the belt to Africa, even though guys like Francis Ngannou already have. But he wants to bring the belt. He wants to be the first guy to bring the belt back down to his region of Africa and South Africa. He wants to be the, quote, African fighter in the UFC. And like I said, although I don't really agree with the comments that he's making, I don't think that there was this ill will. I just think the comments were immature, and I think that he should have made the comments in a different manner. He shouldn't have made the jab towards Adesanya, but he should have definitely expressed the fact that he wants to bring the belt home, and his home is Africa, and there's nothing wrong with that. People are either saying Dricus is this African hero, or they're saying Dricus is completely fake African European. And at the end of the day, no matter what you think, it is a legitimate fact. Dricus du Plessis is an African, whether you like it or not. You do not have to be black to be African. You can be You can have any type of skin color and be an African. If you're born and raised in Africa, you are an African. If you currently reside in Africa, you are an African. This is not something that I should even have to talk about, but unfortunately we're going to have to talk about it. So moving on, Israel Adesanya, the current middleweight champion of the world, finally responds to these comments in his podcast with his brother. I believe it's some sort of podcast, correct me if I'm wrong, but he finally responds to these comments and goes over it. So let's take a look at those clips right now.
Tell me who the fuck I am, who the fuck Kamaru is, who the fuck Ngannou is. I'm like, are you dumb? As a product of colonization, you're trying to tell me who the fuck I am. You can take the boy out of Africa, but you can never take the Africa out of the boy. I never ever did that to him. I never discredited him as an African. I just, okay, there you are, cool. You want to make a fight, cool. But the fact that as a fucking cracker to tell me who the fuck I am.
So there you have it. Israel Adesanya finally addresses the comments. And this was a while ago, so finally does not mean recently. But basically, I agree and disagree with some of the stuff that Israel Adesanya said in this video. Israel Adesanya, he made some good points. He said, I never doubted the fact that Dricus is an African. And to be fair, he didn't. He never doubted the fact that Dricus du Plessis is an African. And, you know, if Dricus wins the belt, he'll be the African champ. And if Adesanya already has the belt, he is the African champ. He's an African, he's a champ. African champ. Dricus, he's an African. If he wins the belt, he'll be the champ. African champ. Both of them can be African champions. And, you know, Adesanya makes some good and bad points here. You know, he talks about how, you know, he never doubted Dricus in that, and he never attacked Dricus. And Dricus made these comments basically unwarranted. And I don't disagree with him. The way Dricus made these comments was, you know, it came off a bit aggressive towards Adesanya. You know, it came off a bit on the attack of Adesanya. And Adesanya then goes from fine to terrible. He starts calling Dricus a cracker, which, in my opinion, is the most hilarious word in the dictionary. If another grown man calls me a cracker or one of my, you know, white friends a cracker or something, I'm just going to laugh my ass off. Cracker is the least offensive word I have ever heard in my entire life. And if you get offended by the word cracker, you're a pussy. You're an absolute pussy. If you look at cracker and you view it as a racial slur, you're a little pussy. Don't talk to me. You're a child. And Adesanya just goes from good to bad. He makes himself look... He goes from, you know, seriously addressing the comments to just going off on this angry hate spew. And I didn't include this clip, but he also just keeps on going on about how he's going to drag Dricus' carcass across South Africa. And I have no issue with that. You know, I have no issue with those comments. But Adesanya is very noticeably annoyed and very pissed off by these comments. So, you know, this is something where Dricus started it, Adesanya responded and kept his cool for a little bit, but Adesanya, obviously, the comments got to him. He got very noticeably pissed off, and that broke the surface. And there's no issue with that. Adesanya is human just like the rest of us, and, of course, emotions can run high. There's no issue with that. And it kind of further goes to my point. Dricus started this whole thing unwarranted. He should not have made those comments. He should have made those comments in a different manner. He should have not made them. He should not have conducted himself in the manner that he did. Because of these comments, Dricus responds from his home in South Africa, and he basically goes over how he finds these comments by Israel Adesanya to be incredibly stupid. So we're going to take a look at that clip right now.
For me, is the most ridiculous thing ever. That is the one thing that from this whole thing that really pisses me off, to be honest, is that color was brought into it. I've never even mentioned color because it makes absolutely no difference to me. And to every single person that I know, it makes absolutely no difference. Color is not...
And there you have it. That's Dricus du Plessis' official response to Israel Adesanya's comments on the podcast with his brother. And, you know, I don't disagree with Dricus. He never brought race into this. He never once mentioned how, you know, Izzy's blacker than him, or, you know, he never mentioned anything like that. He never mentioned skin color, and Adesanya did. Adesanya started calling Dricus a colonizer, started calling him a cracker, all these kind of comments that were just as unwarranted as Dricus du Plessis' comments, and just as, way more childish than Dricus du Plessis' comments. And it's honestly just a terrible look for Adesanya, and there's really not much to say here. Dricus just basically says, what you did, it was stupid, it was childish, you're not conducting yourself in the manner of a champion. And these comments made by Adesanya only make him look like a fool. And I 100% agree with Dricus here. He never brought race into it, and Adesanya did. Adesanya made this a racial issue. So moving on to the next development in this series, finally happens in the aftermath of UFC 290's featured fight in Dricus du Plessis versus Robert Whittaker. Dricus du Plessis viciously knocks out and finishes Robert Whittaker in the second round of their fight. Gets on the mic. Robert exits the cage immediately after the fight is made official, and Dricus gets on the mic. Joe Rogan goes in to interview him, and it's just a basic interview. Do you expect that to happen? They look at the replay. Dricus goes woo, whatever, and the camera pans to Adesanya, and Adesanya. The commentary's talking, maybe he's going to walk in the cage, maybe he's going to walk in the cage. And Adesanya walks in the cage. And Adesanya sits there and stands at the edge of the cage and waits for Dricus to get to a pausing point in his interview. Joe Rogan notices him, and Joe Rogan goes, and there he is, the great Israel Adesanya. Dricus proceeds to say, well, I don't know about great. And here is the actual clip of what happened and the incredibly childish comments made by Israel Adesanya.
The great Israel Adesanya. Yeah, I don't know about great. Check it out, chill. That's right. We're fine. Relax. This is my African brother right here. Let's go. What's up? Let's go. Yeah. What's up? Yeah. You gonna do? Yeah, my African brother. Yeah, my African brother. What's up? I'm African, but I ain't no brother of yours, son. Let's go. You my for real. I'll show you. I don't need a DNA test. I don't need a 36andMe to know where I'm from. If I do a 26andMe, they'll say I'm from Nigeria. Do a 26andMe DNA test. It'll tell you where you're from. I will show you where you're from.
And there you have it. I apologize to anyone watching this video. If you're cringing as much as I am, I feel bad for you, but I promise you I'm cringing more. That was painful to listen to. Adesanya sounds like a legitimate child going on, yelling at another grown man. You can't be conducting yourself in this manner, and Adesanya must be held responsible. I mentioned this in one of my last videos. I do not want to see an apology from Israel Adesanya, but I don't want to see him conducting himself in this manner. It was so corny. He needs to sit down with himself and really think about, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you conducting yourself in this manner? It's so corny. You look like a child, Adesanya. And then you have Adesanya just continue this hysterical rant, talking about 26andMe, slurring over his words. And I'm glad I replayed that clip just so I could, really install it in your brains. Adesanya was drunk out of his mind. Dude is drunk, yelling the N-word at someone, making it such a racial issue, conducting himself like a child. That is no champion. Israel Adesanya is no champion. He may have the belt, but he is no champion. And Dricus du Plessis conducted himself like a champion at UFC 290 in the build-up and in the aftermath and in the post-fight, and he's continuing to conduct himself like a gentleman. Israel Adesanya, however, is conducting himself like a little child, and he is being a salty little prick. There's no other way of putting it. If you look at these clips and go, man, yeah, go Adesanya, man, he really got him there with those comments, you're a loser. You are a loser. You really need to reevaluate your life, and you're either under the age of 14 or you have the brain capacity of you have the brain capacity of a tadpole if you find those comments by Adesanya to be cool. Like, oh man, he really got him. He really steered him down, and man, Adesanya's energy. Like, it's so corny, dude. Dude, give me a break. I shouldn't even have to be covering this. I hope every single person that was watching that, either in the arena or at home, was cringing and hiding under their seats in cringe. It was just Terrible to listen to. I was sitting there watching with my dad and my brother, and my dad, who doesn't even watch fights that much, was cringing at the insane comments being made by Israel Adesanya. Dude was stumbling over his words drunk, yelling at another grown man, calling him the N-word over 20 times in the span of 10 seconds. You can't make this up. Adesanya fans always talk about, Adesanya haters just, they just look for anything to hate him. They look for anything to hate him. This is what we look at. I am an Adesanya hater. And I have been an Adesanya hater for a long time. Not for the reasons that you may think, but this right here is all I need. If I didn't know anything about Adesanya, I saw the clip, I'd be in the same position I am now. And I think all of you should be too. Israel Adesanya is a child. So moving on, we have the most recent installment in this little series of back and forths from Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis. Dricus, in the post-fight press conference of UFC 290, addresses the media and answers questions about what his thoughts were on the whole situation with Izzy in the cage and how Izzy conducted himself. So let's take a look at that clip.
Kind of divisive and controversial build up a little bit. How are you preparing yourself for that? Are you wanting to step away from it? What do you think the build is going to be like?
I mean, you saw tonight, I'm prepared. I'm prepared for everything. Everything he says, anything he's behaving like a clown in there. That's not how a champion behaves. That's not how a man behaves. He's behaving like a child. Conduct yourself like a champion. There's people looking up to you and you're behaving like that? Nah. If that sells tickets, good for him. I'll sell tickets my way. I'm a gentleman. I'm a man. And I'll behave like a man.
I couldn't agree more. And there you have it. Dricus du Plessis basically just says it how it is. Israel Adesanya behaved like a clown and he did not conduct himself like a champion. It could not have been said better. I'm not saying that Dricus is some sort of, poet with what he said. He said it how it is, and some people would have cowered. But I love his confidence. You can tell. Dricus du Plessis is not afraid of Adesanya in the slightest. He's not going to cower to Adesanya. He's not going to cower to Adesanya's fan base or the many, the numbers Adesanya pulls in. And I really like what he said at the end. If that's your way of getting views, if that's your way of selling pay-per-view and selling tickets, then you do that. But I'm going to do my thing, and that's behave like a gentleman. It could not have been said better by Dricus du Plessis. And my respect for him, I already enjoyed him. I've listened to him talk. I've watched his fights since before he was in the UFC. I've enjoyed his fights. I love watching the man talk. He carries himself in a phenomenal manner. He's such a gentleman, and he's a really nice, humble dude. And this is just the final nail in the coffin. He earned all my respect with that phenomenal dismantling of Robert Whittaker, one of the best middleweight fighters to ever walk the face of the earth. He completely dismantled him and just kind of took out the trash with Robert Whittaker. And not to say Robert Whittaker's trash by any means, but he literally just disposed of Robert Whittaker like a hitman and completely figured him out, countered him perfectly with a jab as Rob tried to blitz in, and sealed the deal with this, not only with how he handled Adesanya in the cage by not cowering, by not backing down, but with this as well. I hope all of you have gained serious respect for Dricus du Plessis. I know I have, but at the end of the day, I look at this fight and I go, I could see Dricus winning. I could see Adesanya winning. I don't have an early prediction, so at this moment, I don't have an early prediction. All I'm saying is I really want Adesanya to lose this fight, but I don't want to see the build-up to this fight, guys. That's the title of this video. That's supposed to be the focus of this video. I don't want to see the build to this fight. I don't want to see two grown men yell at each other over who's more African. And I think that Dricus du Plessis is trying to back away from the comments he made. I think he understands that what he said... I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. I think that Dricus du Plessis understands the comments that he made were not the smartest, that the comments that he made were not warranted, and that he did not conduct himself in the smartest manner there. And I think he's trying to back off of that. Adesanya, however, not only took it, he addressed it fine at the beginning, but then he brought race into it, and then he brought race into it again while he was drunk, stumbling over his words, making everyone cringe their eyes out in the post-fight aftermath of UFC 290, Dricus du Plessis versus Robert Whittaker. And he just completely embarrassed himself. So, I really don't want to see the build to this fight because I know what it's going to be. I know how Dana's going to market it. Dana is always there to make a quick buck, and I know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to be pushing this who's the real African narrative, and I'm not up for it. I'm not up for it. I don't want to be put through that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya down in the comments. Give your early predictions, early thoughts. Who do you have winning the fight? What are your thoughts on how Izzy's been conducting himself, how Dricus du Plessis has been conducting himself? And make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys in the next one.